The fallout from Pete Thamel's reporting regarding the Big Ten media mess and reluctancy of some schools to play night games in November is being felt, with Penn State and Michigan State being moved to Ford Field on the last weekend of the season. Should we expect more Big Ten games to be moved off campus and onto NFL sites? Could neutral site November become a thing in Big Ten scheduling? Before we get into that, just a reminder to hit subscribe if you haven't already. Big Ten content all offseason long. Always crush that like button to spread the word of Big Ten TED to the masses. It is going to be a very busy Thanksgiving weekend at Ford Field in Detroit. Of course, Thursday, you got Detroit Lions football. The Lions going to be taking on the Packers on Thanksgiving. The very next day, of course, the game that we're all concerned about, we're talking about right now, Black Friday, NBC primetime, Penn State and Michigan State. Now, originally, the HSAA, High School Football State Finals, was going to take place on Friday. Those are being moved to Saturday and Sunday, and the Big Ten is kind of helping pay the expenses for the logistics and the moving of dates to Saturday and Sunday. So thumbs up to you, Tony Petiti. Thumbs up to you, to the Big Ten Conference, for assisting the local high school association for making that happen. Also, here's how tickets are going to be handled regarding this game. Michigan State season ticket holders are going to receive a refund. I believe all ticket holders are going to receive a refund for the game that was going to be played at Spartan Stadium. But it's those season ticket holders for Michigan State that are going to have first priority for tickets at Ford Field. So we'll see how many of the Sparty faithful, we'll see how many of the green and white come out and support their squad on Black Friday from a different venue, this time at Ford Field. Now, when we talk about neutral sites, when we talk about kind of these snafus and compromises that are happening in Big Ten scheduling, and a lot of this has to do with moving games off campus and moving games to neutral site, I want to say this. I will always prefer games, college football, at home stadiums, especially in the Big Ten Conference. The Big Ten has some of the best stadiums, not only in college football, but in all of sports across the world. You look at the Big House, you look at the Horseshoe, you look at Beaver Stadium, you look at Camp Randall, you look at Memorial Stadium at Nebraska, you look at Kinnick Stadium, and the list goes on and on and on. The Big Ten has some of the best stadiums in the country. And it's the atmosphere of those stadiums that makes college football great. The tailgating, the student sections, the traditions, it all makes college football pop on the television screen. It's what made college football different than professional football throughout the years. It's what made me a fan. The band, everything involved in college football has been awesome. And it's being at those home stadiums, being at those home field advantages that makes it ultra special. I've been to stadiums. I've been to big games at Wisconsin. I've been to big games at Minnesota. These are relics. These are cathedrals that really should be preserved, and we should try to take advantage of these venues as much as we can. That out of the way. That being said, these are the types of compromises that are going to be made. When we initially saw the report in Pete Thamel, you look at schools like Penn State, you look at Michigan, you look at Ohio State, you look at Michigan State, and these are the compromises that are going to be made. If these schools don't want to play night games on campus in November, they're going to agree to just play them somewhere else. They're going to agree to play them at an indoor NFL stadium in the month of November. I believe this is kind of the first step, and we could see more of this happen in the future. And I think the reason why this is happening, I think it was the lack of communication when Kevin Warren was the commissioner, maybe the lack of due diligence to really maybe read the fine print, maybe from the university presidents and the athletic directors. I think it can go both ways as to why we find ourselves in this situation. But it would not surprise me at all if this Ford Field game on Black Friday is just the start. You might have schools like in Indiana, in California, maybe Minnesota, teams that have indoor stadiums nearby kind of look at this game out of the corner of their eye and see if it maybe draws more interest, see if it maybe draws more fans. And instead of playing out in 20-degree, 30-degree temperatures, now they can play indoors and maybe draw a little bit of a bigger audience depending on their home stadium versus the potential neutral site stadium that could be played. Flexibility is going to be key. I want to say that in terms of future Big Ten scheduling, in terms of the month of November. Flexibility from the Big Ten Conference and flexibility from the schools with this TV deal so the Big Ten can retain as much of that value and provide as much of the value. This might even be an additional boost. Right, NBC might think, whoa, NFL Stadium, last game of the year, Penn State, Michigan State. This is a big-time game. This is a big-time atmosphere. And this could be maybe something that the networks could be interested in as we go along. More about that here later in the video. I also want to say this. I think a majority of teams, I mentioned those 4 schools that were mentioned in the Pete Thamel article about the hesitancy to play night games in November. I think a lot of teams, a majority of teams are going to say, hey, yeah, let's host a night game in November. I don't think it's going to maybe as big of a deal. Nebraska Athletic Director Trev Alberts came out and said this week that said, yeah, Nebraska football was built on late season primetime games. We want to be in that slot, and we want the fans at Memorial Stadium to be a part of that. So yes, these are your bigger brands. Your Ohio State, your Michigan, your Penn State. These are the bigger brands in the Big Ten, but there are still going to be teams that are going to want to host night games in November on campus. All right, let's go to the next thing that I want to talk about. Right now we're playing 9 games in the Big Ten conference schedule. 9 games, right? You either have 5 at home, 4 on the road, or vice versa. I could very well see this game being moved to Ford Field as a stepping stone to kind of adopt a little bit of a hybrid model in terms of Big Ten scheduling in the future. What if the Big Ten, now schools would have, since schools are sacrificing a home game in this potential scenario, they would have to kind of try to receive a financial balance in terms of sacrificing that game as much as that can really be achieved. But I think there's a scenario out there where teams could play 4 home games, they could play 4 away games, and they could play 1 neutral site game to level the playing field, to balance things out in terms of Big Ten scheduling. Like late in the season, you could play games at SoFi Stadium, Lucas Oil Stadium, US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. You look at the future Chicago Indoor Stadium. You look at Ford Field. Those 5 stadiums in the month of November could possibly be used. And then maybe earlier in the season, you look at MetLife Stadium out of New York. You look at M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore. How about the Dome at America Center in St. Louis, Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia? It expands the Big Ten to maybe these markets where maybe they aren't all the time. There's not, I know State College is a decent, it's in Pennsylvania, but there's not really a big-time Big Ten presence, so to speak, in Philadelphia in terms of a team that's kind of in that metro area. Maybe this allows the Big Ten to really even expand their footprint even more, to have a stadium series type of scheduling model and not have an odd number, an uneven number of home and away games in the Big Ten. This could help balance things more. The big obstacle with this is going to be teams sacrificing one of their home games for a neutral site game. There's going to have to be a big payout. Does it come from the conference? Does it come from the networks? Do they have to pitch in a little bit more for this to happen? I think that remains to be seen. But if this Ford Field game goes off and it is a success, you could definitely see more of these neutral site games in the future. Whether I like it or not, whether you like it or not, it could happen as we progress throughout time in the Big Ten Conference. I want to hear what you guys think. Do you think that this is going to become more of a thing as we continue on throughout the years in the Big Ten Conference? Or is this just short-term compromises that are being made to appease everybody throughout this Big Ten media mess? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm Big Ten Ted. We will see you in the next one.